Well, for those of you that heard Andonis's commitment yesterday, at least the first of two by this time next year. So looking forward to what the next one will be. Any new technology is assigned a level of significance, a level of importance, based on its ability to shape or reshape our world, change our world for the better, contribute towards adding value to our everyday lives, the way we do business. In that same way, blockchain technology will be accredited with a value based on its ability to reshape our world, just like the computer, just like the internet and other technological developments have in the past. Based on its ability to contribute towards changing our lives the way we do business. A major problem our society is facing today is that of fraud. A recent report by Crowe and the University of Portsmouth found out that 6% of global GDP is lost due to financial fraud. In money terms, that equates to over $5 trillion US. More than 80% higher than the whole of the UK's GDP. What's even more worried is that this amount has increased by 56.5% over the last 10 years. An average company can in fact expect anything from 3 to 6% of its budget, or sometimes up to 10%, to be lost because of financial fraud. So when a CFO of a company prepares the annual budget, they have to have a line in saying fraud, financial fraud equal to anything from 3 to 10% of the company's budget. That same report called fraud as an arms race. Over the last 15 to 20 years, an armory of tools have been developed to help companies overcome fraud, but at the same time, fraudulent actors have equally developed similar or better techniques for carrying out fraud. Generally, a reactive approach has been followed by companies, hoping that this is something that does not happen to them, and if it does, they would deal with the financial and reputational losses afterwards. As a result, fraud is now one of the great unreduced business costs. Technological factors have been cited as being a big part of this increase in fraud. Complexity of fraud processes makes it easier to hide fraud, to get fraud through. The fact that most transactions take place over a computer terminal make it easier for fraudulent actors to perform fraud, because it's a different thing looking at a computer screen rather than looking somebody straight in the eye. And of course, controls are struggling to keep up with the increased pace of change in business. A big chunk of those trillions relates to certification fraud. A report by the Journal of Economic Issues has found that fake certificates cost society billions of dollars. A quick search on Google can give you some really impressive results. Where does the cost lie? Employers hire people that are underqualified, and they therefore suffer in performance and lost value. Imagine you're a shipping company and you hire somebody claiming to be a lift handler. That's the person that stacks the containers on the deck of the ship. A job that he doesn't do well, of course, and the ship hits some rough seas, and the containers end up in the water, costing millions in compensation and damages. Customer experience is hurt by underqualified employees, also damaging the employer's reputation. I was at a conference a few months ago, and the gentleman before me, an American fellow, he opened up his presentation by saying, I can only see figures in the audience and not faces. Why? Because I recently visited someone claiming to be an ophthalmologist, which of course she wasn't, and she could not detect a simple cataract that I was suffering from, so she prescribed to me treatment that has really messed up my eyesight. Very unfortunately what happened to the gentleman, but it was the perfect lead-in to my presentation. Affected institutions waste money in combating that issue. People claim benefits that they're not entitled to. Items being misrepresented as to their origin and authenticity. There's reports saying there's about $12 billion lost in counterfeit products every year. Of course, falsified health records, people claiming upon that, and qualified people are being left out of a job. The certificate you see on the left-hand side of the screen belonged to a lady called Lily Kahatrian. Mrs. Kahatrian was the head of AML at FBME Bank, once described as one of the world's dirtiest banks. FBME Bank came under investigation by the US government for extended money laundering on behalf of drug traffickers, arms dealers, oppressive dictators, and other fraudulent actors. In an attempt, and was facing being barred from using the US dollar. In an attempt to counter that ban, the super rich Lebanese owners of the bank hired two of the world's most popular legal firms in order to build a case to fight that the ban. Of course, they put front and center the impeccable credentials of the AML head. Now, two of the people that were assigned on the case by their law firms quickly became suspicious of some of the actions of the AML head. So they decided to look into the authenticity of her Harvard MBA degree, only to find out that it was a fake. To cut a long story short, before that, more to their surprise was the fact that the owners of the bank knew about it, and they used it to actually leverage some influence on her decisions. To cut a long story short, one thing led to another, which led to the closure of the bank a few months later. The lady on the left-hand side of the screen is called Zelia Alemi, a clinical psychiatrist with the NHS, serving 22 years in the profession. She was a holder of a fake Auckland University degree. Mrs. Alemi was discovered to have the fake degree only when she was investigated after being found to be the beneficiary of the will of one of her patients, a document that she has also forged. This led the NHS to actually carry out an investigation and looked into the certificates of 3,000 NHS doctors. This is a case close to my heart because it involved the football team I support back home. The gentleman on the screen is a Francis Uzoho. He is Nigerian national team's goalkeeper and was signed last year by my team back in Cyprus. Of course, the federation asked for a medical certificate in order to register him, and the team, in a rush to have him qualified for a match against a prominent opponent, filed a fake degree, a false certificate, health certificate. This was discovered when the opponent team actually filed a complaint after they had lost the match, and it was only discovered that the certificate was a fake because the critical moment when the blood tests took place was when the guy was still on the plane. My team ended up fighting to avoid relegation rather than for the championship. Blockchain to the rescue. Blockchain has certain qualities, has certain functions that make it ideal for fighting fraud and embedding trust into somebody reviewing the certificate. It's transparent, it's immutable, it is open, and it is secure. At Blockcom, we are leveraging blockchain technology in order to embed trust to anybody reviewing any kind of certificate. I'll take something from Scott's presentation. In this case, we're being Aristotle. We keep our sights on the ground, and we offer a solution that is relevant to people today. We're independent. The validation is independent of the issuing institution. It is a long-lasting solution as there's no dependency on the vendor, on the issuer, and we're a simple-to-use solution. The document transfer between issuer, owner and validator is a simple PDF file. Because let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, today's world, majority of people out there are not ready for smart contracts, are not ready for tokenization, they're not ready for private keys. All we offer them is a solution that is relevant to them today. We're on the most secure of blockchains, the Bitcoin blockchain, and of course we offer efficiency through reduction of manual processes and costs. There are certain characteristics to our platform that make it relevant for any certificate issuing organization. There's no limit as to the size of metadata that can be added to the certificate. Certificates can be issued in batches of thousands. Straightforward web interface. Certificates can have an expiry date, a very important feature for certain industries we serve. And of course, certificates can be revoked. Now, we'll spend the next few minutes just going through some of the sectors, some of the industries we serve, both in the private and the public sector. Education, first and foremost, the University of Nicosia being the first to implement our solution back in 2014, when still people were contemplating what this Bitcoin was. The university was accepting it in payment of tuition fees. Shipping industry, an industry that is overwhelmed with paperwork. An average shipping company has to file up to 40 certificates as part of its daily operations. With increased legislation to improve marine safety and reduce marine pollution, the burden on those companies has really increased. So having a solution that would reduce overheads is been very welcomed and embraced by such companies. Healthcare, as we saw with the footballer, it is very important for people to have the single version of the truth and to avoid data manipulation. Insurance policy certificates, claim certificates, and cover notes, again, using our self-variable certificate solution, can add value to the whole insurance landscape and reduce insurance fraud. As I mentioned earlier, $12 billion is lost dollars on an annual basis in counterfeit goods, enabling the verifying of origin, quality, and the whole supply chain of goods definitely adds value to the industry. And of course, professional training like education with all the qualifications and CPD requirements of students. Moving on to the public sector, Education Ministry, of course, a prime adopter of our solution. Other than tertiary education, secondary education certificates can be issued using the technology, and of course, all the teachers' training certificates are a use case. Going on to the Shipping Ministry, very recently, the Shipping Ministry of Singapore, I think it was, announced putting all the certificates of the ships under their flag on the blockchain, something we had suggested to our Cyprus Shipping Ministry a few months ago. We're getting there. As Cyprus, we have a bit of a delaying effect, but we're getting there. And of course, all the certificates of the seafarers that are on those ships. Law enforcement, we're engaging with the police in order to get their certificates, clean criminal record certificates, for example, very useful for any one of us that wants to be appointed as a director for any financial entity, regulated entity. Next one is my favorite, my personal favorite, and I think most of you out there that try to open a corporate bank account will appreciate that, or have your papers checked for AML purposes. Imagine the registrar of companies issuing all company registration certificates, incorporation, date of registration, registered office, directors, shareholders, issuing all those certificates on the blockchain. And all I had to do for verification of those by a bank, a government institution, and anybody else would be to simply send them to the bank. And all they had to do was drag and drop them into a validator found on the page of the registrar, just to let them know that, yes, this is an authentic certificate issued by the registrar to this company, this date, etc., etc. Local authorities were engaged. By the way, apologies to all the lawyers and certifying officers in the office for the previous solution. But that's what blockchain came about to do, to cut out the middleman. And that's what we're doing. Local authorities, I was saying, engaged with our technology, issuing wedding certificates, or the civil wedding certificates, and other certificates they issue. And of course, the betting authority has been cited as a use case for our solution, issuing all the online betting licenses, license reps, and their establishments. Thank you for your attention. We have a booth upstairs. Any one of you out there wondering whether there's a solution to that certificate issuing processes, please come and visit us. Thank you.